So your career so far has been taking some interesting twists and turns. You grew up in Buffalo mostly, but then you ended up on Long Island. Why don't you just tell us a little bit how that worked?
So we ended up playing that Long Island team in the state finals a couple years ago, and it was a season that I actually injured my shoulder and had surgery that August before, and so I only played about 20 games, and I ended up going and trying out for the Indiana Ice of the USHL, the team that drafted me that year, and making the team, and that was pretty much the thing that I was going to do, and a man by the name of Ken Martin, he works for the NHL, and he's a good friend of one of the coaches that coached me from the time I was little. He kind of approached me and said, he's friends with Pat, and he thinks it's good for me, not playing a lot of games, to maybe take a year off as to progressing, competition-wise, and maybe go there and take a year off and get bigger, stronger, and develop my game. And it was a tough decision. I think every kid wants to be able to go and play the USHL and be able to tell all your buddies, I'm playing at a higher level. And but I think it was a family decision, and something I prayed about a lot. And the decision came to me, and that Pat's place was the place for me.
Now, there's one thing to go play for Pat LaFontaine, but you also lived with him as well. And I would think through that process you would pick up a lot of the things that go into being a professional athlete.
I think it was definitely a bonus to live with someone who's in the Hall of Fame. It's someone like Pat, who's a really smart guy, and we'd watch hockey games, playoff games, regular season games, and he'd be predicting the score and who would score, and he's most of the times he'd be right. And just the way he broke down the game into the little things was really impressive to me, and I learned a lot off the ice as well.
So did it end up being a good decision for you to go to Long Island?
Yeah, I don't have a regret in my mind about it. I think, I don't think I was physically ready to go to the USHL or mentally ready. And, I want to give a lot of credit to Steve Webb. He was our assistant coach, and, he had a thing called the Y tool, and it's online. You kind of rank yourself after every game, and it tracks your progress throughout the year. And I think that really got me mentally, there as well as physically, on my own time.
Now, after that, you had to make another decision where you wanted to go. What were your choices, and why did you pick what you picked?
My choices were, the national development team, and also Indiana for a year. And it was pretty much this year, and then I was committed to Michigan State. So it was either of those two. And Steve Spott and his staff followed me throughout that Long Island year, and ended up meeting Spotter at the state final and the national final, and he said, no pressure, but it's an hour and a half over the border if you want to just come, check it out. And I never really thought I'd play in the OHL, and but as soon as I went with my mom and one of my close family friends, there was just kind of that feeling on the way home that that this was the place for me, and there's no way I could see myself going anywhere else this year.
Because the draw of Division I hockey, particularly at a big power hockey school like Michigan State, is pretty strong.
It is strong, and I think you look at the college lifestyle, and it's pretty cool to see that. But I think I needed myself to go into a league where it's kind of like a pro schedule. There's more games, and this coaching staff in Kitchener is second to none. I think Steve Spott, he doesn't turn out the last two Calder or trophy winners for nothing. So. I definitely thought I could learn a lot from him and develop myself, the best in Kitchener.
You talked about the shoulder surgery you had when you were 15 years old. How did that happen? Why did you need it? And that's a tough thing for a 15-year-old.
Yeah, I just, I was just starting my freshman year of high school, and I made the varsity hockey team, which was huge. And I think 4 games in, it was just a 50-50 puck, me versus a defenseman in the corner, and we kind of got our feet tangled, and I put my arm out to kind of brace the fall, and that's the first time my shoulder kind of popped out, and it's pretty bad pain. It wasn't fun. And then, like I said, I came back the next year and played for the Regals, and then that June I did it again, and we went to the doctors, got some X-rays, and they said, we can take another 3 months off, and you can play on it and hope, or you can get the surgery and, you should be good. And I did get the surgery. It was a pretty big decision, but, it's been without a problem since.
And we mentioned Pat LaFontaine. Also, I guess some other guys used to play for the Sabres, Mike Pekka and Matt Barnaby and those. I mean, how did you get involved and to know all these guys?
Growing up, I lived in condos where the Sabres players would stay. I was too young personally to remember, what they might have said to me when I was 3 or 4. But my mom and my aunts became good friends with those guys, and kind of growing up, he'd be at my 5th and 6th birthday party, and I knew he was an NHL player, but I really didn't know what it took to get there. And really in the past 3-4 years, I think Matt Barnaby has been one of my biggest mentors, whether it comes to making a decision or when I'm down after a game, he's kind of there. He's been there. He's gone through the CHL. He's been to the NHL, so he's pretty much done everything that I want to do.
Now, my understanding is your grandfather was a big figure in your life growing up, a father figure, really. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, my grandpa is 100%, my father figure. He picked me up from preschool, kindergarten, all the way up, and he's done everything for me up until right now, and he's someone that I give huge credit to how I've turned out as not just an athlete, but also as a person. And I think the strong core of a family that I have, we're all within 5 minutes of each other. My aunts, my grandparents, so we'd have a family dinner every Sunday, and my grandpa would always be someone to talk to sports about or anything like that in a predominantly women family.
Now, everybody who comes through here talks about, everybody has a challenge, growing up. Sometimes it's illness, sometimes it's parents splitting up, sometimes it's different things. For yours, people know your father, Carlton Bailey, played for the Buffalo Bills, and you guys have never really had a relationship. Is that an obstacle for you, or is that just a fact of life that you've just grown up with? I
think it's a fact of life. I think when people's parents split up and they don't have that core of a family to fall back on, I think that's when it really affects them. But like I said, my grandpa was pretty much my dad, and still is to me my dad. And I have so many other people around me that really kind of lift me up. And so I mean, yeah, there was times when there'd be a father-son thing that I couldn't go to, but I don't think it really ever affected me, and I think I've learned to just, kind of be with life, the way it is.
Do you get tired of the question people asking you?
I mean, not really. It's something that's a part of my life and something that, most people would want to know. So I don't think I get tired of it, but, it's something that I want to work on in the future.
Do you see yourself as, what kind of a player do you see yourself as? I mean, your build, the way I've seen you play, the way you play the game just screams power forward. Is that sort of what you have in your mind?
Yeah, I think of myself as a power forward. I think God didn't make me 6'3", 6'4" for nothing. So I see myself as a power forward that can also score and can also make that finesse pass or that finesse play that maybe some power forwards can't make. And I like to think that I want to take my game to the level that Eric Stahl or Jordan Stahl are two big guys that I want to role model my game after.
And what are you working on? What part of your game has really got you focused right now?
I think a big part of my game that I need to work on is obviously size, not any more height, but I think weight. And it was tough with that shoulder injury to really get a good summer in. And I think last summer with the Holinka tournament, 20 days away, is tough to get a really solid summer of training in. And I think this coming summer, with what I have laid out so far, it's definitely going to be a huge summer for me and something that should change my game.
There's a lot of people getting excited about you as an NHL prospect now. How do you look towards the NHL draft? As a complete unknown or full of possibilities, or what do you imagine?
I mean, it's tough not to look into the NHL draft and with the list coming out and things like that, but I'd like people to know who I am. I think with the things that are happening, this CHL stuff and everything that the OHL brings you, I'm trying to make a name for myself now, and a good name, not a bad name, and hopefully, whatever happens in the draft, it's not the end-all be-all. There's guys, Pavel Datsyuk, and just a couple guys that come to name that weren't drafted or were drafted late, and they're probably top 20 in the league now. So I think the draft, it does make it a little bit easier to maybe get a chance in the NHL, but I think staying there is all up to you and how hard you want to work. I remember the home opener in Kitchener. I think I might have had 22 tickets of all family and a couple friends too. But my mom and my grandma and my grandpa and kind of a surprise guest comes up for every Friday night game, and they make the 2-hour trip up and the 2-hour trip back and don't get home till 1 o'clock in the morning. So it's really good to see those guys every weekend, and it's really good to still be able to see my family on a pretty much regular basis, and even when I have to tell my trainer that I need 20 tickets for Friday. Yeah, faith is huge in my family. I grew up going to St. Greg's, which was my elementary school, and freshman year I went to Canisius High School, which is a Loyola school, and then second year St. Joe's, third year St. Anthony's, and this is actually the first year of my high school that I haven't gone to a Catholic school. So I've really grown up, and faith has been a big part of my life and something that I kind of fall back on when times are tough. And I wear this bracelet. It says "When in doubt, pray" on it, and it was something I started wearing when I went to Indiana Ice's camp as a 15-year-old, and pretty unsure of myself, and I didn't have a lot of confidence, and there was a lot of 20-year-old guys, and so I fell back on this, and every time I looked down, it was something that I used to help me in the Indiana tryout, and I ended up making the team, and I've worn it ever since.